Photography today has reached the hands of almost everyone. Thanks to the high-tech digital single-lens reflex cameras, cyber shot cameras and mobile phones which have flooded the market. There is a constant competition among the manufacturers to offer maximum features at minimum cost. Thousands of brands and models are available in the market. Photography today has changed the lifestyle of the masses. Digital photography has come as a boon to the simple owners of the cameras, amateurs and even professionals. Added to this is the great advantage of taking a good picture with just a click of the shutter. In a few seconds, one can see the result in the camera monitor. Quite unlike the good old and time-tested analog cameras, which are also known as film cameras, which took a lot of time for processing and printmaking. Today, one does not have to wait for that long. When I was in Kinnaur, I used to send my black and white, color and even slide films all the way to Bombay to get them processed, printmaking and back, which took sometimes weeks and even months. That's because I was very far away from Bombay, but if you are very close, even then you might have to wait for a day or two, which does not happen in the case of digital cameras. Analog cameras have by and large been replaced by digital cameras, although analog cameras even today hold a commanding position, particularly when it comes to the quality of final results. So while you have the camera, why not master its features and facilities and take a good and memorable photograph for pleasure and for posterity. Photography today is used in almost all walks of life, from birthdays to funerals, from landscapes to closed chambers, to glamour to advertising, from the cities to the villages, and from the plight of the refugees worldwide to the moments of ecstasy. Camera has found an uncanny, even an intruding place for itself. We have the amateurs, the serious amateurs, high-tech professionals and even the paparazzi. Let's begin from the beginning. Several different technical discoveries and inventions have been going on for centuries with a view to find a recording medium for people, places and events. The mention of pinhole camera dates back to the 5th century BC onwards to the 4th century AD. It has been a series of experiments mostly in China. Some of the exponents who deserve mention are Chinese philosopher Mozi, the Greek mathematician Aristotle and Euclid, and in the 6th century AD Byzantine mathematician Anthemius of Tralles used a type of camera obscura, which means the darkened chamber, in his experiments. In the 9th century AD, Al-Kindi, also known as Alkindus, demonstrated that light from the right side of the flame will pass through the aperture and end up on the left side of the screen, while light from the left side of the flame will pass through the aperture and end up on the right side of the screen. In the 13th century, Roger Bacon of England described the use of camera obscura for safe observation of the eclipse. The term camera obscura was first used by Johannes Kepler, an astronomer in 1604. In the 16th century, many artists, including Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, used the camera obscura to help them draw pictures. A person or object would be outside the darkroom and their image was reflected on a piece of paper and the artist would trace it. This is the drawing of a camera obscura done in 1646. This drawing shows an outer shell with lenses in the center of each wall and an inner shell with transparent paper for drawing. The artist needed to enter by a trap door in the bottom. The camera obscura was used in the painting of this picture. It was painted about 1660 by Jean Vermeer. His paintings are known for their camera-like detail and quality, but were painted 150 years before the invention of the camera. He painted this image in 1665. He was a great master who made paintings which still amaze people about their photographic look. The camera obscura was made portable by the 18th century by putting it in a box with a pinhole on one side and a glass screen on the other. Light coming through this pinhole projected an image onto the glass screen, where the artist could easily trace it by hand. Artists soon discovered that they could obtain an even sharper image by using a small lens in place of the pinhole. In 1727, a German professor, John Schulz, observed that silver salts darkened when exposed to light, but the idea of making pictures using this information did not occur to him. Daguerre's process, named as daguerreotype, was announced to the world on January 7, 1839. 6 months later, the French government gave Daguerre and Isidore, that is Niepce's son, a lifetime pension in exchange for all rights to their invention. The daguerreotype was to become France's gift to the world. The first daguerreotype, which was taken in 1839, is a picture of Port Ripetta in Rome. 3 weeks after Daguerre's announcement, an English amateur scientist, William Henry Fox Talbot, read about the daguerreotype and realized that this invention was a lot like his own unpublicized process that he called photogenic drawing. He quickly tried to claim priority over Daguerre and presented his process in a paper to the Royal Society in London. In Talbot's process, he first coated a sheet of drawing paper with the chemical compound silver chloride, and then he put it in a camera obscura where it produced an image with the tones reversed, that is a negative. He then placed the negative against another coated sheet of paper and produced a positive image. Talbot did not find a way to make the image permanent until a month after Daguerre's announcement. But his process, later improved and renamed calotype, is the basis for most modern film technology, which relies on negative and produces many positive prints. The earlier models of camera obscura were large from the size of the room to the size of the human being, and it is in the 18th century the compact ones, the more easily portable and user-friendly cameras were introduced. The 18th century artists used the camera obscura to outline their subject. Pinhole cameras and camera obscura were later used by Niepce in 1826, who had made the first permanent image. He managed to burn it onto a chemical-coated pewter plate. He called it heliography, which means drawing sun. It was the first black and white image and took 8 hours of exposure. Later, both Louis Daguerre and Fox Talbot, they also used these cameras. Another thing to note is that while discoveries, researches and inventions were going on in the field of developing a camera, simultaneously in the 12th century, Albertus Magnus discovered silver nitrate, and in the 16th century, Georges Fabricius discovered silver chloride. Wilhelm Homburg described how light darkened some chemicals in 1694. There are various schools of thoughts as to the use of the term photography. The credit for the development of the modern photography goes to Daguerre of France and Fox Talbot of London, who simultaneously invented photography in 1839. However, it is John Herschel who is credited to have first introduced the word photography, which he applied in the terms of negative and positive. But actually the term photography had already been coined by a French Brazilian, Hercules Florence, in 1834. The term photography has been derived from the Greek words. Therefore, photography means writing with light. In this case, light is the medium and camera is the instrument which is used to make pictures. Daguerre was the first one to take a picture of a person. It's a beautiful picture of a street in which a person is getting his shoe shined. From his own window, Daguerre put his camera facing a street in which there were lots of people and carriages moving about. But to his good luck, the man was recorded simply because the exposure was very long and all the people and the carriages who were moving along the street could not be recorded as they were moving out of the frame. From the first permanent picture taken by Niepce in 1826 to the picture of the first person in 1839, it took 13 years. At the same time, after this, there was a series of firsts in the field of photography. For example, the first photo of lightning was taken in 1847. The first picture of war was also taken in the same year. The first photo of the bird's eye view was taken in 1858 and the first color photo in 1861. The first action shot was taken in 1878. The first tornado was shot in 1884 and in 1889 the first ever photo was published in the National Geographic. The first underwater color picture was taken in 1926 and the first high-speed photo in the 1940s. In the 1940s, the first analog cameras of the modern kind were introduced. Thus, the list of the first is going on and it continues to be there. Everyone is trying to do whatever it can for the first time and show it to the world. Ever since 1839, the face of photography has changed and it is progressing day by day. And it has been quite a fast and inventive way of working. It is now that modern photography started gaining roots and progressively has reached present high-tech level. And today, photography is recognized as a fine art. The arrival of George Eastman in the year 1880 changed the entire world of photography. He introduced roll film cameras. He also introduced his own cameras and patented them. The first camera that he designed was only for roll films. In 1892, he established the Eastman Kodak Company in Rochester, New York. It was one of the first mass product standardized photography equipment. This company also manufactured flexible transparent film devised by Eastman in 1889, which proved vital to the subsequent development of photography and also motion picture industry. There is an interesting story about Kodak camera. It weighed a little over 2 pounds and it was over 6 inches in length and it could take sharp pictures from 8 feet onwards. It had only one speed and only one aperture. It came with a roll which took 100 circular images. It cost $25 and once the roll was finished by the photographer, you had to send the entire camera along with the exposures to the Kodak company. Kodak company would process the film, make the prints and return you the camera along with another roll of 100 exposures. Their slogan was, "You press the button and we do the rest." In 1880, the first twin lens reflex camera was introduced and thereafter people started looking for small cameras, one would like to say pocket cameras, and it is in the 1952 that Pentax or SI Flex, Japan's first single lens reflex camera, was introduced. The first digital camera was introduced by Sony and it was known as Sony CD Mavica in 1981. In 1991, Kodak brought to the world Kodak DCS-10 and made it commercially available. Coming to the films, in 1935 Kodachrome introduced color reversal film, and in 1963 Polaroid was introduced. In 2007 a survey was carried out, and it was found that at that time nearly 68% of the photographers wanted to continue with the commercial roll film simply because of its picture quality. But now it is felt that the trend is changing and people are switching over to the digital photography. As far as the commercial aspects are concerned, the great Ansel Adams sold his first portfolio for $3,900. In February 2007, Sotheby's London sold Andreas Gursky's 99 cent to Diptychon for 3.34 million. A second print of the same picture was sold for $2.8 million, and a third print again sold for $2.25 million. Today, even Indian photographers are getting lakhs for their prints. We all know that originally the photography was in black and white or monochrome. Between black and pure white there are gray tones in between. Now these tones are the ones which make a picture give a classic look. The more the gray tones, the better the picture is, and therefore one should try to get picture with as many gray tones as possible. Another point to note is that while black and white picture is considered between pure blue, pure black and pure white, there is a thing called cyanotype pictures also, which are also in the same category as black and white. Now in this there is a blue tone instead of the pure white or pure black tones. Another tone which is available is the albumen, wherein the tones are brownish. Today we can produce black and white pictures through digital camera also, and monochrome pictures will always have a special place in the world of photography because of their appeal. The permanence due to the silver halides based chemicals used in process make it long lasting and of archival value. The first permanent color picture was taken in 1861 using 3 color separation principle. Take 3 separate black and white photographs using red, green and blue filters. This provides us the 3 basic channels required to create an image. Transparent prints of the images could be projected through similar color filters and superimposed on the projection screen. This is additive method of color reproduction. Autochrome, the first commercially successful color process, was introduced by Lumiere brothers in 1907. In 1935, Kodachrome introduced the first integrated tri-pack, and it captured 3 color components in a multi-layer emulsion. A color print on paper could be produced by superimposing carbon prints of the 3 images made in their complementary colors. That is the subtractive method of color reproduction, which is cyan, magenta and yellow. Instant color film used in a special camera which yielded a unique finished color print only a minute or 2 after the exposure, was introduced by Polaroid in 1963. Ultraviolet and infrared films have been available for many decades and employed in a variety of photographic avenues, leading to new artistic visions. Modified digital cameras can detect some ultraviolet, all of the visible and much of the infrared spectrum. An off-the-shelf digital camera contains an infrared hot mirror filter that blocks most of the infrared and a bit of ultraviolet that would otherwise be detected by the sensor. Uses of full spectrum photography are for fine art photography, geology, forensics and law enforcement, and even some claimed use in ghost hunting. In 1981, Sony introduced Sony Mavica, a digital camera using charge coupled device. This eliminated the need for a film camera. While Mavica saved images to disk, images were displayed on television and the camera was not fully digital. In 1991, Kodak introduced its first digital single lens reflex camera. It was very expensive and only photojournalists and commercial photographers could use it. People who are working professionally were also using it, but for a common man it was not easy to use. The other thing was that the digital camera recorded the picture on a CCD, and while the analog camera recorded on the celluloid, where there were chemical changes. The next thing is that in a digital camera, in a digital photograph, one can do a lot of manipulation, which is not really possible in the case of a film. Like that, there are many things which are in favor of CCD. At the same time, people prefer to use film camera simply because of a couple of reasons. Film superiority in capturing more information on medium and large format films, creating a traditional photographic look, capturing shadows and highlighting details, wide exposure latitude of the film, and archival storage. There are quite a few careers available. However, some of these are portraiture, advertising, press photography, industrial photography, medical, cinematography, which is the most creative of all, and wedding photography, which is most popular of all. Today, photography is considered to be one of the most versatile medium for recording people, places, and events. It has great room for expressing creativity and thought process of an individual. It actually is the depiction of the personality of the photographer, and that's how pictures of the same subject treated in the same way have different results. It is the viewpoint, it is the vision of the photographer. There are analog cameras and digital cameras available in thousands at an affordable price. The technology involved in the digital photography is improving continuously, and that day is not very far when digital photography will overtake film photography.